Okay, on this week of the AIS podcast, we have Nate on the podcast. He's from Riverview Decks out of Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee, Knoxville area. We talk about everything business, how he went from being a general contractor that just did remodels into specializing in decks, what decisions he made to niche down to that market. We also talked about a little bit about life, God, business, how to not be balanced in your business. We talked a little bit about everything. He's a good buddy of mine, and I'm excited for you to listen to this. I think you're going to like it. Okay, welcome to this week's episode of AIS Podcast. Today we have Nate. He is a general contractor out of Tennessee area, Knoxville area, specializing in decks. So new decks, repair of decks, but it always wasn't like that. And so I'm really happy to have Nate on here. We've been buddies for a few years now. I would say, 2020, 2021, we met up. So Nate, give us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the deck world. And I'm looking forward to our talk.
Yeah. So, man, like I said, it's an honor to be here. I appreciate, you guys immensely. Always inspired by what you guys are doing on the West Coast out there with your business and the different things that you're getting involved in. I think it's really forward thinking. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast. I started my business back in 2019. I was working in corporate America, in logistics. I traveled a lot, quite frankly, for the business, and didn't really think much about the idea of transitioning into self-employment or creating a business. At the time, I was happy, but I started to look at upward mobility and growth, and wasn't really excited where the future was going for me. I was kind of in the back of my mind, just itching to want to jump into something that was more challenging and be able to work in an industry that has untapped potential, right? And so I knew from the transportation industry that it's a billion-dollar opportunity. In the home improvement industry, it's kind of the same thing. So I always wanted to work in construction. Getting my general contractor's license was a goal of mine, to get closer into the idea of real estate investing. So I just jumped in 2019 and got into it. We had a lot of fun kind of dialing in specifically what we wanted to do. At first it was just me. And then I brought on some friends that had an interest in the same thing. We worked towards home improvements. Mostly we were doing carpentry and, adding drop zones to people's homes, or, custom cabinetry in their pantries and laundry room. To me, that was, a really cool way to be able to give something that they needed and give them a quality service where they weren't able to get otherwise. It led into bathrooms, and we started to kind of grow into being the prestigious, vendor that could service them and give them that vision that they were always looking for. But what I started to look more at when I started kind of managing the business more and working less in the field was that we were slipping. We had to have a lot of high ticket sales in order for us to be able to continue to maintain some of the overhead that we had. We had to really develop a better marketing strategy to get the ideal client that we wanted to work with. Social media then became a thing, whereas I kind of had a negative connotation to the idea of being out there all the time on social media and blabbing, to the people that may or may not be listening. So kind of just dug into that, and in that deep dive, I realized business is really simple. I was overcomplicating it and thinking too hard about all of it. And it comes down to the fact that you need to get your ideal client somehow. You need to be able to market to them specifically. And then once you can obtain them, you need to be able to sell them a service or a product that they need, and facilitate executing that product or service. And then once that's done, you need to be able to service them on the back end too, if there's a warranty or, good communication. Because obviously in the home improvement industry, a referral is what's going to help you really spend, little money and have bigger trajectory for your future goals. So I mean, that kind of led us into the thought of, well, what specific projects have we done that um, were better profit margins, that were seamless, installation, that didn't have all of the complications that interior renovation had, and out of those types of projects, what were the ones that we could scale and grow into, to service a market that had a demand for it. So we started with the marketing. Really, we wanted to know what jobs there was a high interest for in our market, and we landed on the fact that our deck work, even though we didn't do a lot of in the past, it had a substantial place on our P&L, and it made a lot of sense for us to dig deep into, well, how many inquiries do people search on Google for a deck builder in our area? I mean, that's what having a good marketing partner works well with. They're going to be able to pull that information quickly and give you some knowledge. I had no idea that people were inquiring about, a deck builder in December
Hmm.
in East Tennessee. And then when I saw that and the actual numbers, I was like, holy cow, like it's really not that difficult weather in December. Like we could build them in December, right? So that's kind of what led us to get to where we are now. And we're just starting, so it's exciting.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. When I saw you guys do that full rebrand, I was very impressed because it kept the original kind of integrity of your brand. I feel like when you're doing renovations, but niching down into that deck space, I think was really genius on your end because you're right. I mean, doing a kitchen or bathroom, or even asking your guys to like go do a kitchen remodel, and then next week do a deck, and then the week after that we're doing a home addition, and then we're doing a bathroom. Like asking them to do all these things is so demanding, and you can't expect one employee to be a journeyman level across the board in all different facets of construction, right? Um, so when I saw you guys do that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know, like even locally here, there's a little bit different demographics out there in Tennessee, but we don't really have a specific like just deck builder in the Central Valley. And actually, exactly what you talked about, looking at the keywords, kind of reverse engineering, where's the demand, and then how can I have a product market fit, made a lot of sense too. We actually just I did this with kind of an e-commerce business I was working on. I was like, okay, what's super high in demand? And I went to Google Ad Planner, looked through keywords, and I came up with something that I'm not going to mention on the podcast because it's not trademarked yet. But I think that's the best way to do it is like, where's the demand first? And then how can I fit my product into the market? So kudos for that. And, we both work with Eddie too, and he's great at that stuff as well. And when you were doing renovations, you kind of touched on how just being so sporadic and how you need these high tickets to pay that overhead burden. What's the difference now? Like, so what does your crew look like now? What's your average job length, your average job size? Like, how's the turnover of projects? Kind of give me the current climate in the deck world.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously, coming from the remodel world, we were a vendor service model, or as others like to call it, the subcontract model, and that can appeal to a homeowner in the right way if it makes sense. But sometimes it's a confusion as to why that's a thing. For us, it was a huge thing in the bathroom world because you've got a quality high end tile installer, a quality high end trim carpenter, quality high end plumber that they're not going to touch anything else but what they're focused on. And they don't market, they don't sell, they're not businessmen, they're tradesmen that know their trade well. And so we essentially just looked at ourselves as the marketing and sales force to be able to get them the quality work that they want. um, with bathrooms though, I mean, the overlap and all of the trades kind of became a complication. Everything hinged on the tile guy's schedule, so we had to plan that around it. It would be really hard for us to qualify multiple vendors for different jobs and still execute on the same quality. So with decks, same system. We're vendor service model, but the uh, the goal with the decks is to simplify them. We're not trying to make the most complicated process out there or most complicated decks. I mean, we certainly have done some nice ones, but they're not the most sought after features and finishes. They're extremely simple and very commonly, built styles,
Yeah.
with materials that are readily available. I mean, our lead time right now, materials is about a week. And so the crews are focused on framing, and they've got a couple of guys that are a little more tailored to actually making the cuts that we need to make for the visual aesthetics on the stairwells and in the mitered picture frames and stuff. But I guess overall, it's really not an extremely detailed process. It's very simple.
Yeah, which is great. And there's something to be said about, keeping it simple, stupid. I feel that, the two hardest businesses in the world, um, commercially, would be restaurants and contracting businesses. And they're also the first two that fail within 5 years. And we're already playing business on hard mode, right? Because we're essentially delivering a service that's also viewed as a commodity that is also a very hard value proposition to explain to a customer on what's the difference between your deck and someone else's deck. Um, so I think it's great that you're niching down. You have a clear, clean, simple process to execute these things. And it looks like you guys have been, super busy from what I'm seeing on social as well. And with the social media, because you essentially said that you guys took the business model of using trade partners, outsourcing the labor, but treating yourself as basically a sales and marketing company that happens to do decks, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, let's face it. Um, not knocking any of the guys out there that just build decks and they do it all in house, but it's a lot of work to generate a moving ship that can conquer 3 to 5 to 10 million in just outdoor living space.
Mm-hmm.
Remodel or repair addition. So dialing that in and making it really clear what our responsibility is in the whole sales cycle with the crew, they start to see the value in the fact that we count on them extremely to be able to execute on the finished product just as much as they're going to count on us to be able to show them a schedule that's booked out for 3 to 5 months of high end work that they can count on, that they can go take home and say, hey, look, we're good financially. We've got work. We're well established in the marketplace. Now it's a matter of just creating the brand recognition to the point where people will they'll know, like, they're calling us for a reason.
Yeah, which you're doing really well as well. I mean, on social media, I always see you doing, walkthroughs of ongoing projects. You have great content going out on YouTube as well right now. How do you feel that's attracting your ideal customer? And also, in the same breath, is that bringing in trade partners that want to work with your company because you would be putting them, kind of on the map with exposure?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I got a piece of advice last year while I was snow skiing in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, from a guy who's got a huge social media following on YouTube, and his recommendation was, man, just build the social media channel. It's going to create some omnipresence for you, get you out in the marketplace beyond your zip code, and ideally, you may not find that your clientele is watching you there, but eventually people are going to start to see you in that realm, and that's just one avenue or one channel that are getting fed your information, that it's going to ring true that you're the right guy for the job. So omnipresence is huge. Social media can be a double-edged sword sometimes because it leads into a lot of transparency and who you are, what you're all about.
Mhm.
So if you've got a tendency to go sideways in what you're doing, and you want a kind of a private lifestyle, that's going to reflect in the growth of your business, right?
Mhm.
For me, we're okay with the fact that people know what we do. We're into, I'm okay with the fact that people see me going on vacation. I mean, I think you got to live a healthy life and put yourself out there to where people can know, like, and trust you. And so social media is one way to do that. And then in addition to that, this mentor I met in Maggie Valley was telling me that he gets phone calls from people out of state that want to come work for his crew because they have a great camaraderie internally, and they've got good core values and a culture that's thriving. So the only way they see that is on his YouTube channel. And our goal is to be able to put out content information so that people can see us and say, hey man, like, I'm looking to move to East Tennessee. It's a great environment to raise children in. It's a great seasonal transition through all four. So, I mean, at that point, if you're looking for a career opportunity, you're going to start to go to social media or, and people aren't finding careers on LinkedIn or Monster like they used to, right?
Yeah, it's a different world out there in recruiting for sure. I love when I have someone reach out, and that same situation happened to me. I had a guy moving here from Detroit, reached out for a job. We didn't end up moving forward, but it was just kind of a cool deal. Like he just found us and hit us up. And even better when you're in a homeowner's home and they're like, "Oh, I've watched all your videos," and I'm so excited for this process and I already know what's going to
Yeah.
happen next. I'm like, "Oh, it's working," because for so long when you start social media, I feel like you're just screaming in a black hole, right? And the only people that really hear you are your competitors. And it seems like you're not really getting any traction. But it does pay off. I mean, for us, we started this year with like 20 something YouTube subscribers. We're almost to 400 now. We've been really hammering that. We're actually seeing some fruit from that now, which is exciting. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's a long-term game. But like you said, with the transparency factor, I love it because it kind of automatically raises the bar in your immediate market. Because if you're the only contractor that's being vulnerable, putting yourself out there, super transparent on price, process, expectations, what these homeowners can expect when you're coming into their home, what the finished product's going to look like before you're even there. Um, it just sets you apart so much. We've noticed many contractors in our area kind of mimic our inbound marketing approach that we took. I love it. I think it's great. I think it betters the whole industry. It betters the market because you have a good buyer is an educated buyer, right? So you have people that are truly educated on what to look for in their proposals in a company. Yeah, I think it's very valuable what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, your content, the way you're putting things out there to go to educate people is extremely helpful for, setting the standard in the industry, and raising the bar for people that, may not be doing that. I think there's a lot of people that get into the industry that don't really have a place or shouldn't be in it for what they're in it for. And so that's going to change. And the more that we're educating clients and giving them the real deal on how, they should have a relationship with the guy that's doing the work in their home and the type of, experience they should expect, that's now creating a completely different process for people. So
Yeah, it's getting in front of a buyer in a different way, right? Because it does take out the commodity aspect of your business. Because and at the end of the day, I tell people with their kitchen remodel, unless you're going with an unreputable contractor or someone that is just a Home Depot quality type installer. If you're going with a reputable company, the end result's gonna be the same, right? The kitchen's gonna be gorgeous, the bathroom's gonna be gorgeous, and it's not about the end result; it's about how you get there, right? It's about everything in between. Because we have a 22-step process that I share with homeowners, which can be overwhelming, but I make it bite-sized for them. Only 2 steps of that process are actually construction. The other 20 is everything supporting us being there on site, being prepared, meeting schedule, meeting budget. We're a no change order contractor, so we have a lot of quality control checks before we actually break ground to make sure that we can deliver at the promised price. And you share that with a homeowner and just the value proposition, right? Like if you walk in to do a deck and you're coming with samples, previous projects, references, your full exhaustive process that's going to happen, day by day or week by week, everything before the build, during the build, after the build. You make an offer so good, they would be stupid to say no, right? And it's kind of like that Alex Hermosi type framework of make an offer so good, they feel stupid saying no. And with that, it really does come down to just educating your customer, social media process, having, hard samples and deliverables that you can bring them before in the sales process, which I think, we've been in similar business groups for probably the past 3 years. And I mean, you guys are doing great. That's why I wanted you on the pod, talk a little bit about that stuff. So
yeah.
getting in front, I kind of want to dive back a little bit to when we talked about decks and how you kind of reverse engineered the keyword volume for what you would be doing, and found that product market fit in Riverview Decks. What was kind of the deciding factor in making that? And besides the keywords, and two, how are you getting in front of those buyers? Are you specifically Google Ads? Are you doing networking events, community events? What does that look like for you on a marketing front?
Yeah. So the first question there, once again, was about
Yeah, so
the actual.
reverse engineering those keywords to find a demand for decks, and then how you kind of leverage that to create Riverview decks.
So when we looked at the jobs that we had done that were deck related, we realized that the sales cycle was a lot quicker. A bathroom or a kitchen, you're going to be in conversation with a homeowner for it could be 2 to 3 months sometimes, and maybe they're not ready to move forward. Maybe they require some more design consultation work with an architect or an engineer or a designer. So you're bringing in more people to help make more decisions, which ultimately it requires everybody to be on the same page. So it kind of slows the process down because everyone has an opinion, right?
Mhm.
With decks, it's kind of straightforward. Like we've got a vision for it. We know what we want. We can step in and, come up with a plan pretty quickly. Our goal when we come out to our clients' homes is to make sure that we're as informative as we possibly can be to help them make a good decision. That decision is whether we are or are not a good fit. Once we know whether we are or are not, then we can start dialing in on all the details and specifics to give them a solution. So it's a lot faster. I mean, I'd say probably this year, since January 1, when we've implemented a new sales process, more often than not, we're going to a client's house that we spoke to the day before. And while we're there, we're coming up with a game plan and executing on a solution right then and there, collecting a deposit and getting them on the schedule. That's completely different than what we were doing in bathrooms and kitchens. And it has to do with kind of how we've dialed in our approach and knowing like what things cost and you're really thinking about systematizing our overall um, executable. So like how we build or what specific we want to build. We do tailor to whatever people like sometimes, but in margins, we make sure that
Mhm.
we're not going crazy over the top with things.
Yeah, and I love your post when you say the one call close, and you're sitting there, you got the phone up, you got the check in hand, and you're like, one call close, let's go. And do you feel that the sales cycle, obviously, it must be shorter than a kitchen? You might have 10, 15 trades getting performed, right? And even a full home renovation. I think our current life, like sales cycle life, is 6 to 8 weeks right now for a full home, like fully designed, ready to like get into production. Where a bathroom, we try to have like a 5 day turnaround, kitchens, 5 to 10 day turnaround. But with the deck, like you answer the phone, pre-qualify, have a job walk, collect deposit. It's it's business on simple mode, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, people they know what they want when it comes to that sort of thing, and usually they're thinking about it at the beginning of peak season for decks.
Mhm.
So every deck builder is going to book up extremely fast. You're in high demand, so having a scarcity approach, it's part of the game, and you've got to let people know that when you're going to be out there at their home, that's the best time frame for them to be able to get on your schedule. I'm not pressure selling anybody. I'm just telling them the facts. Like we're going to have a few other contacts that are going to reach out to us within the next 24, 48 hours. We're going to book on-site appointments. There's a good chance we're probably going to sell 3 or 4 more decks this week. And
Mhm.
so by thinking about it or, needing to get back with me in a couple weeks, you're delaying when I can help you. And so I'm there on site. I make a point to address the fact that it's really helpful when, all parties that are going to be involved in the decision are present. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time. I've had homeowners that they do want to talk about stuff, um, but it's not a really complicated conversation. It's either a yes or a no,
Yeah.
or it's out of line. So I'm happy to step outside or give them their space and let them make decisions. Right?
And so, what's your average job size in decks right now?
$55,000.
Okay. So I mean, that's not. I was going to ask about the scarcity side of it too. If there's a very low hanging fruit for entry, but $55,000. I mean, that's not chump change. That's a decent amount to put into your outdoor living space.
Yeah, I mean, those are spaces now though that have become high demand. And in my past, I've sold other luxury items in sales, and what I've come to find out is people are going to invest in places or hobbies or things that they want to have around for a long time to enjoy with their family. And one of the things I think a lot about is like boats. You know, people will spend $100,000 on a boat, and now that's where they weekend vacation for throughout the entire summer.
Mhm.
How's it any different than their backyard? Now, not only that, but it's not a depreciating asset. It's going to help their overall investment in their home. It's going to appreciate. It's going to be a space that they're going to make a lot of memories in, similar to their kitchen or their their bathrooms. So make it great, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. 55,000 is probably about the average size of our bathrooms right now, is typically like 45 to 55,000 for a full bathroom remodel. So, I mean, it's very comparable to other home improvement costs. And I do agree. Yeah, transform your outdoor living space into really a lifestyle place where you can hang out with family, friends, entertain. There's a lot of good marketing angles there too. Now, in the kind of the situations you inherently have these situations in the market, like for sales wise, the scarcity you brought up. Is that because there's a decent amount of competition in this area and there's going to be, if I can't do it, every other deck builder's booked out 3 weeks too. I'm here right now. Let's move forward type of thing. Or what are the things that you inherited just because of the market that really leverage your sales process to get customers to move forward?
Um, just answering the phone. I mean, that right
Simple as
alone,
that, right? Just pick up
it's
the phone.
simple.
Yep.
Just pick up the phone. I mean, and if you can't hire somebody that can, to give the people that are calling the answers they're looking for, because sometimes they are really just simple, like, hey, how far booked out are you? Because I want to see if we're in the same vicinity. So being able to be there for people when they have questions. I mean, I think that's probably the one thing that most people will say, even if they don't move forward with us, is that we at least took the time to inform them and educate them and give them enough information to decide if we are a good fit or not. And then they take that knowledge and it helps them kind of determine where they're going to go with their investment. So those are kind of some things. Beyond that, though, we've sort of inherited just the fact that there's deck builders, right? A deck is a deck is a deck. I tell my clients that anybody can build one. It's not really a complicated feature.
Mhm.
It's the experience that you're going to remember at the end of the day after it's all said and done. And it could be a great experience and you're going to enjoy and want to refer people out. Or it could be one that's terrible and you got robbed from a contractor that, didn't finish the job. So giving people enough confidence in the fact that we're selling them certainty. We're there to do a quality high end job. It is my utmost goal to be able to facilitate quality craftsmanship and execute on a timeline like we commit and give them a space that now they really want to invite their friends over to. I mean, let's face it, I did a little study a long time ago about like home improvements and I had to write out 30 reasons why someone would hire me,
Mm.
and the top 10 were really easy. The next 20, like, I pretty much had to do the old dial a friend, and then the last 10 were so, like, they weren't just words, they were sentences, and one of them, when we were thinking about bathrooms, was like, why would somebody hire you for a powder room renovation? And what we realized is that's the one space in your home that people will see first on their own alone, where they can judge you for your sense of like cleanliness
Mhm.
and your character. And I think the same way about decks. It's now visible to the whole neighborhood, so they're gonna judge you on like, oh man, did you see the Jones? They got a new deck. They must be living large, like. So it's kind of a game, right?
Yeah, 100% is. It is I've always thought like the luxury buyer, like the psychographic of it has to be a little bit prideful in a way, right? You want to have pride in your home. You want your home to look the way you represent yourself, right? So if you're walking around Louis Vuitton and you have all this fancy stuff, you're driving the Range Rover to work, when people come over for a barbecue, you would think they would expect the same type of experience at your home that you give them outside of their home, right? I would think. Um,
Yeah.
which I mean, the psychographics of a luxury buyer, that's a whole other podcast. But no, I do think that is 100% correct. Um, other people's observation of your home is really big in the buying decision, what people are going to think about it. That's why, I mean, there's so many marketing campaigns around, 2 months before Thanksgiving. Like, hey, you don't want your whole family coming over and looking at your 1990s kitchen. Let's get this thing fixed before Thanksgiving. Call us now. Um,
That's right.
yeah, no, that's
That that's a good segue into the question you had earlier about just like what approach we're taking right now to be able to obtain our ideal client. Um, so at first, I didn't know much about marketing really. Like I didn't even want to have our brand, or I didn't care much about our brand. I didn't have anything on our trucks or trailer. I had the old adage like, well, if you put the name of your business on the side of it, people know what's inside there to steal it, right?
right. Yeah,
So
which
I
happens.
refrained from that. But when I started realizing that, you have to eventually get out of the trenches and be able to run your business, you need to find qualified people to be able to handle getting you good leads. And so that's when I, found Eddie and started pairing up with him, and he's done a phenomenal job of not only catering specifically to the market that we want, but generating enough volume for us to be able to capture the people that see the value in what we do. And right now, we do a variety of different types of Google ad spend. So from competitor campaigns to just normal campaigns, and it's growing. And then we of course have a big structure with our SEO platform. So SEO is an interesting game as well. It's a slow process. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that I see pop up in the market that are tricking the algorithm, and
Mhm.
they're listed as number two or three in the whole area, but Google picks up on stuff like that and eventually wipes them out. And we're in the idea that we're creating a real estate for Riverview Decks online so that people can find us when they need us, and it's just going to continue to grow and be a solid source of lead leads for us. And then beyond that, now the social media has kind of not really been a place where we've focused a lot on getting clients, but I think you tap into it eventually at some point because you can only spend so much in ad spend. There's only so much you can do to get your ideal client through Google, and you got to work through other networks. And being in a local BNI group helps.
Mhm.
Marketing with other people in the industry. So I've got a lot of friends who are home inspectors. Got a lot of friends in real estate, and people that are kind of out and about. They see or are already working with my ideal client, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When we did the same, because we had similar trajectories, right? You started 2019, we started 2020. We took the inbound marketing approach. So
Yeah,
the they ask, you answer with an EOS twist on structure, and just went that way. And I love how you said taking up real estate on Google, right? Because that's really all it is having the specific keywords backlinked, have citations, blogs, city pages where these people are going to find you first,
that's right.
right? Being relevant on Google, which it really scares me because I'm looking at all these Chat GPT plugins for like search engines, and I'm like, oh gosh, I hope they just don't mess up the previous 3 years of, because we've spent a lot of money on online. We spent a lot of money on SEO, a lot of money on blogs. We did that in house for about a year and a half between me and a marketing director we hired, and then we recently went to Eddie, I think Q3 of last year, into Q2, something like that. And he took all that over. He's been doing great. But I do think the SEO game, if you can be on a map pack in every city that you do work in, you're it's a cheat code. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah, it's just not fair to competitors.
Yeah, I love it when I see the bright local reports and I can tell like we're dominating, we're building a moat.
Yep.
And I know most of the people that are in the area that do what we do. Some of them I think I've communicated with a lot. Some of them not so much. They're just kind of in the distant background. But eventually, it's going to come to the point where like there's not really a way for me to be able to service everything that's here. There's just so much, and so I think with building a moat, it can get to the point where you kind of have to have relationships with some of the people that work local because you're going to need them.
Yep, 100%. I want every single, I'm not sure about you, but for our company here, anyone that is searching for a kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, full home remodel, addition, I don't want them to call anyone else first, right? I always want to crack at it because then I can control that whole process. I could set the expectation for my competitors as well.
That's right.
Even like presenting my proposals. I don't want to be first to present to you. I want you to talk to me first. I'm going to set this table the way our expectations are laid out. You go talk to your 4 or 5 other contractors. Let me know when you get all those back, and then we'll have like the real sit down, right? And in a non-arrogant way, but I need to have the control, and I know
Yeah.
our process is better than anyone else's process. So if I can get there first on the phone, set the table, get there last on the presentation, I'm in control from beginning to end. And there's homeowners, they just give me all their bids, right? And I sit down with mine, I sit down with theirs. I'm like, well, let's go apples to apples here. And yeah, it's just a beautiful thing when you have that authority in the market.
Yeah, you've mentioned 2 laws, there that I'm not sure you're aware of, but, like, we were on a call recently together,
Mm-hmm.
with Brian Diamond, and, and one of his big things that he's coached up on, and I'm extremely grateful for is, just understanding these laws that are spoken of in, Cialdini's book, Influence, that you address, law of reciprocity, law of authority,
Mm-hmm.
law of liking, and all those things. Like, I can almost walk into a client's house now and know, like, when we didn't get a deal, which one of those laws we failed on. And when you're qualifying people by, giving them answers, just like you said, they ask you answer, you're giving them answers to commonly asked questions they have about what they're investing in. You're pouring into them. Like, that is the law of reciprocity. That is, when someone asks you if you'd like a glass of water in it, that when you're at their home and you say no, well, that's going to reflect in some decisions here coming up. So, you have to accept that glass of water, right?
Yeah, sometimes the beer too, like,
Yeah,
hey.
yeah, you could be on a diet and still need the,
Yeah, you got to eat the
I'm not
finger
even sure
food.
how I'd handle that right now.
Uh, yeah, I think that's a big thing too. I know Brian talks about that a lot. As far as the book Influence, I have not finished it. I've not gotten through it, but I do think all those things happen on the first call, right? As soon as you pick up that phone, like you said, it's as easy as just answer the dang phone. I 100% agree. It has to start in the first call. It has to, and the big thing too, I think the first initial experience they have with you on the phone, it needs to compound throughout the process. So I always, when I set my table for an expectation for a homeowner, I give them, oh, I hit my mic. I give them more than probably anyone else would, but I'm always leaving carrots along the trail, right? I'm always leaving something when I get to their home. I have another value add. When I'm leaving and I'm following up, giving them expectations on presentation, I have another value add. So every single time I'm building and building and building. And by the time we get to the end, they have all my deliverables in hand. Like, we've had homeowners cry because they couldn't move forward with us and they either had to wait or settle. And that just really affirms the process that how I feel it should be.
Yeah, that's your impact too.
Huge impact, especially in our local market. We got like 2 other players in our market. And I think we're the ones that are really tech forward, especially to the consumers, right? We have automation set up for communication. We have personal touches that are automated. We have gifts and all this other, after the project's done kind of perks that are automated. So it's all the things. It's all the things of business combined in one. It's basically got to be a tech startup that's also a SaaS company that's delivering a service,
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we're in the automation phase right now, dialing it in, and I always wondered how you could be as connected to people, and this is one way that you do it where it's not really that complicated. We now have a Shopify account too, where we'll be utilizing for our gifts. We have all branded gifts that come through the Shopify account, so kind of a multifaceted resource for not only that, but then if we want to gift the crews a bunch of sweatshirts, like they're already all there, I could just
Yeah.
knock it out.
What is the rule over there in Tennessee on gift giving? I know in California it has to be, I think, less than $5 or $10, something like that.
And you guys have a lot of rules.
Yeah, California. Yeah, that's once again a
I
whole other
love it because
podcast.
I've had calls from people that are in NorCal, like wanting decks. They find me on the internet, and when I talk to them, I get so crazy, like blown away at all the different things that they're getting thrown at the hoops and loops. But
Yeah.
I don't even know that we have. It might be 1,000 or $500 maybe, but it's
Jeez.
not something that I would probably even worry too much about. Most of the people that I'm going to gift are going to appreciate the purpose behind it, and they're not concerned about the cost of it.
Yeah. We started doing cookies because it kind of is something that we can do.
That's cool.
But, we had a bunch of great ideas for, custom branded gifts that they could use in their kitchen or bathroom or whatever it may be. But then, yeah, it just takes one customer, that someone whispers in their ear, "Hey, that's illegal," and then get reported or something. So, kind of a bummer in California. And people are super like they're court crazy over here too. They're always looking for. There's so many contractor scams with homeowners. It's
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get into the deep on it, but like for sure, we hear. I mean, obviously, where we become, I think, one of the top 5 places now to retire based on our climate and tax incentive and political stance. And so, a lot of the people were moving to East Tennessee from California. They're immediately openly saying, "Hey, we're not bringing any of the stuff that we had dealt with, and we're open for your ideas, right?" So
Yeah, don't bring California with you, right? Yeah,
yeah.
I have friends in Texas that say the same thing. Like, dude, there's people flooding Texas right now, and they're just like, leave California in California. Don't bring that stuff
I
here.
want to know who's buying all the property in California.
Ugh, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, so we are in a little bit of real estate. I think we have a couple rentals that we bought in the past 3 years, but right now the market over here is just a mess. Right, my wife and I are actually still in escrow for a place that we're trying to get. That's kind of our forever home type situation. Um, it's been like 6 weeks. The interest rates are just brutal right now. Everything, because I think on our primary right now, I think we have like a 2.8 or 3%
Oh,
interest
wow.
rate,
Yeah.
where everything right now is like 7%. Yeah, real estate in California. You would think everything is beachfront by the price of it, but even a $400,000 home needs to be torn down in California. It's pretty
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good thing, though. I mean, obviously, we can, you know, always try and forecast where our businesses have an opportunity, and I think when you look at the market from a real estate standpoint, you can tell earlier on, where you may need to position yourself. So
Mhm.
the market's hot here still. People are still moving here. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
people are
Leads
still
have not slowed
qualifying for
down.
HELOCs.
Yeah, leads are not slowing down. At least for us. I think that the higher interest rates actually help us out in a way because the guy that has 100, 200K in cash ready to put down on a home, but he has a 3%, like my situation, right? I have a 3% interest rate. I really don't want to go buy somewhere that has a 7 or 7.5% interest rate and then have to go through all those higher payments and all that stuff. I'd rather just take my money and renovate my home, right?
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people are coming to that realization right now. They're just kind of holding through this economic turmoil we're going through, and yeah, spending it on the home they're living in instead of moving, which is helping us out a lot.
Yeah, the only ones that are selling here are people that didn't do anything to their home, but the guy next to him moved in from California and sold in California
Yeah,
and improved his house, and so now the comps in his market were great, so he sold and moved. I mean, that's the only reason to move.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm on Zillow all the time, looking at Tennessee, I'm looking at Florida, South Carolina, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's so pretty, it's so
Yeah.
affordable, like just to move there compared to California. Yeah, it's a whole different world. It seems like east of us.
Yeah, and opportunity is endless. I mean, it's it's blue skies really, because as long as you kind of really structure yourself in a way to be able to run the right business and service people the right way,
Yeah,
it's
it
kind
could
of
be
win-win.
successful anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are your plans with your business? Are you guys? I'm a big believer in starting with the end in mind, right? Like we created this 10-year picture, 5-year picture, 3-year picture, annual picture, and we kind of reverse engineer it from there. What with your business? What does this look like in 5 years? What are you going to be doing with Riverview Decks?
Sure. Yeah, it's changed a bunch actually. I mean, I got into the industry and home improvements to the focus on real estate investments. My wife has a rental property, and before we met, that was a discussion we had about retirement. I was one of those that wasn't extremely interested in dumping a bunch of money in a 401k. I found that it was more profitable to put that money back in myself, and I show up in a completely different way. And
Mm.
that's one thing I would tell anybody right now if they're looking for a way to just completely transform who they are. Spend 100 grand on educating yourself every year. Go get yourself in front of like a group of people that can help accelerate your growth and your mindset, and that have fellowship with one another, because that'll change everything.
Mhm.
um, it certainly has for us. So I mean, getting into the business, I thought, man, I could just start a business, create profits, reinvest those profits back into some sort of real estate or passive income. And that was kind of the thought. But the first year or two, I wasn't profitable. Like, I even broke even like year one. Year two, we doubled our revenue, but it was still like one of those where wasn't a whole lot of money sitting in the account. It's kind of false on the QuickBooks account. I see 20 grand, but it's not in the bank,
That's not my money. Yeah.
No. So I mean, I got really aggressive with the fact that, like, I'm only, I'll be 40 here in April, and I'm stoked to be able to turn a new leaf in the fact that this business has created a vehicle for us
Mhm.
that now I can see through. There is a potential to be able to do some big things with it. Whether that's transitioning some of our profits into some flip homes, or reinvesting into some short-term rentals, or getting into land development. There's all kinds of ways, I think, to be successful in that.
Yeah.
Exciting, actually. In a couple of months, I've planned to go get my real estate license. I think it's important that you're always improving. So whether it's getting new licenses, or Hormozy talks about licensing, and as a way to make income. And that's one way I feel like if you're creating a leading edge or sharpening yourself, you're just increasing your credentials to be able to one, spread and love on other people, but then also grow and develop a thriving organization that people want to be a part of. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, bigger picture here. I mean, the goal is to be out of a job by next year, full cycle. So I mean, a full general manager in place. I already have a fractional marketing crew, right? I'm looking to do some work with a fractional CFO to take off some of the burden of constantly looking at the numbers. And I want to get away from the thought of the week to week and more about the quarters, and being able to spend time in the different things in the business that are going to help give us the most you know leverage. Ideally, I see another location opening for us. Um, we can service about 100 miles out, but it's not ideal.
Mhm.
That's better off serviced with another branch location. And up and down Tennessee, I mean, we're a long state, but we're a pretty flat state. So I mean, if you're at the farthest northern tip of Johnson City and you're headed to Chattanooga, I mean, it's a drive, but that's three offices that service three huge metroplexes essentially. So my idea is to be able to scale and grow the business and be able to service, people who see the value in what we do.
Nice. I really love how you said the 401k. Like, that's kind of how I judge entrepreneurs, honestly. When we talk about investing or anything else, I'm like, I have a 401k because we got one for our whole team. Um, and I kind of had to. I don't put anything in it, right? Like 401k is not my retirement plan. And if you're an entrepreneur relying on a 401k to retire, you should go get a job. That's my opinion,
Yeah,
right?
just rely on Social Security. It's coming for you, buddy.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I could eat my words in 30 years and I'd be okay with that because I'm that confident in being successful, right? If I'm not successful and fail at this, I think you can't have a plan B if you're truly all in. There's no plan B. There's no 401k. I'm taking all that money and I'm gonna go buy a rental, like you said, or I'm gonna go start a little side business that can generate passive income. Um, yeah, entrepreneurs and 401ks, those should never mix. Should never mix.
No, yeah, I mean, and I think when I listen to other people on podcasts that are kind of going through this interview process and learn more about what energizes people to want to jump and do something like this. I mean, it's not easy. It's a full-time, 80 plus hour a week gig. And you got to really start to focus on what your main priorities are, what your goals are, and spend the quality time in the areas that are most important to you. Um, I would say that you can easily get completely over inundated with all of the different things that are out there. You could be in the wrong group, or you could have hired the wrong people. You're gonna do that. You're gonna make a bunch of mistakes, and it's not the mistake that's as important as how quickly you can get back into it and make another one and
Mhm.
make another one. And the more and more you continually just show up, the results are going to start to work in your favor in a way that it's crazy. I mean, to think that we started in 2019, the first year we did like 160 or 70,000 bucks. It was nothing. It was me, myself, and I. We always showed up, you know.
Yeah.
But year two, we doubled that. Year three, we doubled it again, and now we're blowing it out of the water. Like, I don't even know what we're pacing right now because it just keeps coming in. Um, So I'm excited to be able to bring the right people into the team now that have the same vision for what we're doing, want to be a part of it, and bring a ton of value to the point where like they are literally helping structure the future of not only their career but a really cool business,
Yeah.
and that services clients in a great way.
Yeah. How do you keep that balance? I know you mentioned like 80-hour weeks. So what are you doing on the, I'm not going to do public math right now, but it doesn't leave a lot of free time, what are you
Yeah,
doing to manage?
it's more than 80, probably. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's
Well, I mean, it really is. Every time you're awake, at least for me, there's something in my head going on about what I can do better or what I can do next.
So yeah, I mean, balancing it is I don't think there's really a way to balance it. I think when things are in balance, they're in opposition to one another. So you really have to make sure that your priorities are linear.
Hmm.
And I've learned this a long time ago. What's most important to you? God, family, country, however you list those priorities, and focusing on the time that you're spending in them. Do a time audit. Like, I'd never had anybody ask me if I'd done a time audit before, and Eddie threw that at me as a qualifier to work with him. So he said, "Hey man, for 7 days, tell me what you're doing, like 30-minute increments."
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't hard to do. In fact, I thought I was at like less productive than most people, but when you do it enough to the point where you're breaking your time up, you can see where you're spending it and what's actually valuable. I use a couple of different calendars. We time block a lot of the stuff that we have on our calendar so that you know I'm not pulled in multiple different directions. I still get the phone calls. My phone's blowing up right now. Like, I still get the emails. Sometimes I don't get the emails. Like, you can't do it all, and that's when you need to realize like you need help and the right people to bring into your team. There's never a better time than when you know that you can't handle all of it. The right people will bring you value by making you money and making you more productive. And that was always a fear of mine. Like, how do I hire somebody that's going to cost me more than I pay myself?
Hmm.
Well, I mean, they're probably way more knowledgeable than you are in that field if you get the right one.
And the problem they're solving is worth the money. Yeah. I agree. I think I agree as well with there's no such thing as balance in entrepreneurship, but I think there is something about having aligning values in your unbalancedness, right? So my hierarchy, it goes God, family, KHB, right? In that order. And so with that, who's to say I can't have the culture and the values when I'm working that is inclusive with my family, inclusive with my values spiritually, religiously. I think that all those things can work in one way. But as far as, if someone offers to go bowling on a Friday, at 4 o'clock, it's not going to happen, right? It doesn't align with my mission right now. Um, Same thing, but if my wife, right, if my kids are home from school, we're having a party in the office. Like we're gonna be watching Blue's Clues while I'm working at the computer, and we're gonna go out for lunch. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have our Bible study. We're gonna have quiet time. Like we're gonna have all those things. It could all be inclusive, but there's no such thing as balance. 100% agree with that. There's no such thing
Yeah.
as balance if you want to be successful. If you want to have
Yeah,
balance,
because you're
go
not
work 9 to
switching it
5.
on and off, right?
Yeah,
I
there's no
mean,
off switch.
you're not going to go, okay, man, I did my prayers this morning. I'm going to flip the switch off to that, and I'm going to go get the switch turned on for production in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you, if you do that, God's not going to work in your business. Like, you're not going to see him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you right now, like, that's one of the things that I had a blind eye to recently, where we are growing at an extreme rate where I didn't realize the reason behind that. I was blessed with a lot of revenue right now for us to be able to slow down and focus on the main priorities that are more important than just the business. It's the people in the business. Because you can chase money, man. Like, I think if you're a contractor you're doing the right stuff, you're gonna be successful. You're gonna blow up. You're gonna have a ton of opportunity. Your phone's gonna ring. You're gonna want to take all these clients on, but that's also a recipe for a disaster if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
You will let a lot of people down. That's where a lot of guys go out of business, file bankruptcy, and fail everyone.
Well, they say sales fixes everything until it doesn't.
That's
Right?
right.
Because sales does fix a lot of things, right? If you're cooking, it's hot. You got money coming in the door. That's great. But if you don't have the processes to execute and put that through production efficiently, it's going to expose all of your flaws in your business.
That's right.
Every process that is faulty, once you hit capacity of production, it's just going to fall apart. The Band-Aids are going to start ripping off.
Yeah, that's that feedback loop where you need to be able to make quick decisions, and you can't be a procrastinator. You can't, have this like extreme analysis paralysis. You got to be willing to have confidence in the fact that you're built to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Make the decisions, get going, service your people, and if there's an issue that results from that, own it. Step up. You know what? Sorry, guys, I failed you. This is what I
Extreme
thought we should
accountability.
do. Let's pivot. We need to go. Come on. And that's just the mentality that, as a good CEO, you've got to have.
Yeah, you have to be able to turn on a dime. You need extreme accountability, extreme humility in everything you do as well. And those go hand in hand. Sometimes, swallowing that humble pie, comes with taking accountability for something you were wrong with. It is a very complex, especially in our space, right? I know a company, it's Made Renovation. It's essentially a tech startup that is doing remote design, taking care of all the pre-con process, and then pairing them up with a contractor to execute the work. And I was looking through their reviews and I was looking through like their process. And that's the one thing that I think they didn't have ready and that's, I think a lot of tech startups do this too, where they raise a bunch of money up front. They bring on they put the LEDs on the wall. They have this high-rise building. They're, free lunch, doing all this stuff, right? They're not primal. They're acting like they made it almost. Kind of ironic. Made Renovations kind of feel like they made it. But with that, they don't have the process in place for customer experience. And I don't think they understand how hard it is to standardize and make processes around a renovation where everything is fluid. Everything in the buying decision is fluid. The design, the execution, everything up until day one starts is very hard to really productize, which, if you look at their reviews, overall, I don't think they're too bad. I think it's like 4 stars or something like that, maybe 4.5, but they have some customers that were just pissed, right? Hundreds of pissed off 1-star reviews. And I think it was in that startup phase, and that's why we have to, like for us, we just got our second, technically third location in Pleasanton, which is about an hour 15 from us. My biggest worry, is that there's going to be some faults because we created this internal repeatable model and org chart that we're going to implement over there. And it's kind of like the big first leap, right? It's like your baby's about to take its first steps and you're hoping it just doesn't fall on its face. That's the same thing. Because my biggest fear is that when you try to grow too quick and you don't have sound processes that can handle that capacity, especially multi-market, something's going to go wrong. And internally, if something goes wrong, not a big deal. We fix it. It's not customer facing. But my biggest fear is the customer facing issues, that if something goes wrong and a customer sees this and it's in the explicit process, that's where major issues come in. And that's where the humility to say, okay, I was wrong. I need to pivot. I need to take extreme accountability for this. We weren't ready to take on, 25 projects at a time. We weren't there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Scary stuff running a business sometimes.
Yeah, and and you could sit back and not scale it, not grow it, right? But like when you got something great that I think needs to be shared, that's an avenue for other people to be a participant in, you're holding back. Like I don't know what you think about as far as your gift and your talents, but like for me, it's important to know that that there's a demand for that.
Hmm.
Whether it's from a client that wants to work with us or from guys that are working for other competitors that are miserable because they're underpaid, overworked, not happy about their career position. And, that's kind of a lesson I had to learn too, where I was when I was in corporate America is like, wasn't happy at my job, but I liked my job. So I needed to find somewhere else where I could be happy. And I see that constantly in the trades,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. If you're not scaling up, you're scaling down. And scaling up doesn't necessarily have to be a top line, number figure. It could be internal processes, right? Like I'm scaling up our processes to handle revenue in 3 years from now, right? I'm building out repeatable processes. It could be scaling up as far as production goes and operations to increase your bottom line, right? Like, because honestly, screw revenue, right? Revenue, what they say, revenue's vanity, profits are sanity type thing. Like, it doesn't matter about revenue. It matters what the company is keeping in retained earnings every year. It matters
Yeah.
what you're making as an owner, what your employees are making and taking home to their families. So I do think that if you started a business and you don't have intentions to absolutely take it to the top of what it can be, once again, I don't think you're all in, right? If you're just doing, because then you're just kind of inheriting a job. You're not benefiting the community or society in any way by not being profitable.
Yeah, I mean that's where I would agree with some of the guys that I've heard speak of that. That's how you're failing your family. That's how you're failing your community.
Hmm.
You're not actually living up to your true potential in God's eyes either. So I mean, just thinking through some of that, it's like there's a that's where just kind of having I think a place to really plug into makes the best sense. So
Yeah, I would agree. Well, with that, man, I know you got a busy day ahead of you, as do we. I really enjoyed your conversation here. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking. We're gonna put all your contact information, socials, YouTube, website in the podcast description. And until then, I'll talk to you soon.
yeah, man, I'd leave you with one last thing too. Like just count the wins, man. I'm learning that every day. I've got a jar I've filled up now on my desk that's literally sticky notes of things that I'm grateful for. And I'm filling it up because at the end of the day, this will wear you down if you do it enough, and you need something to be able to feed you. So this is my cookie jar of confidence.
I love that. That's huge. I like that. All right, brother.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, good chat. I appreciate it.
Yep. I'll talk to you soon, Nate.